Brother Giacinto Naldi did not write it down for 28 years. He had heard it from Padre Pio in 1948 during a private conversation in the friary garden, and he had kept it, the way you keep something you are not sure you have the right to share. He turned it over in his mind through the 1950s, through the 1960s, through one decade of pastoral work and then another. He watched people. He listened to confessions. He paid attention. And in 1976, he finally wrote it down in a letter to his provincial superior, because he had seen enough by then to know that what Padre Pio had told him was true, and he was frightened that it would be lost when he died. What Padre Pio had told him in the garden quietly and without any dramatic emphasis was this: there are 3 signs visible in any soul that tell you its guardian angel has stepped back, not abandoned. Stepped back. The angel does not leave entirely. It withdraws to a distance and waits. But the signs of that withdrawal are specific. They follow a pattern, and if you know what to look for, you can see them in someone's face, in the quality of their silence, in the way they receive certain things. Brother Giacinto had asked, "How do you know this?" And Padre Pio had said, "Because I can see the angels." He said it simply, the way you say something that has been true your whole life, not as a claim or a boast, as information. And then he described what he saw when he looked at a soul whose angel had stepped back. And Brother Giacinto listened, and then did not write it down for 28 years. "My name is Margaret Ashford. I am 62 years old, from Coventry, and I spent 23 years as a district nurse before my knees decided otherwise. I have been studying Padre Pio's spiritual legacy for almost a decade, and I want to tell you from the beginning that the 3 signs he described in that garden conversation are not obscure or mystical in the way you might expect. They are specific. They are recognizable. And the first time I read Brother Giacinto's letter, I recognized at least one of them in a season of my own life. I am going to share all 3 with you today, and then I am going to tell you something that Padre Pio considered the most important part of the whole picture, the part that changes everything. But first, I need to take you into the friary garden in 1948 and explain exactly what Padre Pio meant when he said he could see the angels. From the earliest years of his ministry at San Giovanni Rotondo, those who lived and worked alongside Padre Pio documented something that does not fit comfortably into ordinary categories. He would greet visitors who had not yet entered his sight. He would address people by name before introductions. He would make observations about a person's interior state that he had no natural means of knowing. Among these accounts, some of the most consistent involve what witnesses described as his attention to the space immediately around a person. Not to the person exactly, but to something beside or above them. He would sometimes pause when meeting someone, looking not at their face, but at a point slightly above and to one side. Brothers who observed this for years understood that he was looking at the person's guardian angel. Father Alessio Parente, who assisted Padre Pio in his later years, recorded several occasions on which Padre Pio explicitly described what he saw. He spoke of angels as presences with distinct qualities. Some were bright and close, standing at the shoulder. Some were bright but slightly removed, as if giving space. And some, the ones that concerned him, were luminous but at a distance, as if they had taken several steps back and were watching from the edge of the room rather than from beside the person. He did not say these people had lost their angels. He was emphatic on that point. A guardian angel, as Catholic tradition understands it, is given to a soul at the moment of creation and does not withdraw that appointment. But the nature of the angel's active companionship, the closeness, the specific interior work it does alongside the soul, that could change. And when it did, Padre Pio said, it was always because of something the soul had chosen, and it always left specific traces. Those traces are the 3 signs. I want to tell you about a man named Davide Schiavone before I describe them, because his story makes the signs concrete in a way that abstract description does not. Davide Schiavone was 47 years old in 1961. He was an accountant from Barletta, a quiet coastal city in Apulia, a 2-hour drive from Foggia. He had been married for 22 years to a woman named Caterina, and they had 4 children: Teresa, who was 19, Luca, who was 16, the twins Paola and Marco, who were 12. He was, by every external measure, a practicing Catholic. He went to Mass on Sundays, he received the sacraments, he said a brief prayer in the evening, most nights before sleeping. He was not a dramatic sinner, he had no vices that declared themselves. He was simply a man who had, over the course of about 7 years, very gradually, without any single decisive moment he could point to, stopped feeling very much of anything when he prayed. That was what brought him to San Giovanni Rotondo. Not a crisis, not a sin too heavy to carry alone. Something more difficult to explain, a vacancy. A steadily growing sense that the inside of his faith was hollow in a way it had not always been, and that he could not identify what had changed or when. He had tried to address it through ordinary means, more frequent Mass, the rosary, which he had not said regularly since his youth. A confession that felt thorough at the time, but had not changed the quality of the vacancy inside. His daughter Teresa had suggested San Giovanni Rotondo. She had read about Padre Pio in a way that her father had not, and she believed, with the directness of a 19-year-old who had not yet learned to be indirect about spiritual things, that what her father needed was not more religious practice, but a different kind of conversation. David arrived on a Tuesday morning in March. He had not managed to enter Padre Pio's confessional. He had waited in line and then been turned away by a friar who told him it would not be possible that day, in the specific way that sometimes happened around Padre Pio, with no explanation offered. He was sitting in the courtyard, mildly frustrated, when Padre Pio walked through on his way to the sacristy. Padre Pio stopped. He looked at Davide, not at his face, slightly above and to the right of him. And then he said, without introduction, without any preliminary, "You have been praying for 7 years into a distance." David told this story in a written testimony he completed in 1974, 13 years later. He said the sentence arrived like something he had been trying to say to himself for years and had not been able to find the words for. Not a condemnation, a description, an accurate description of the exact experience he had been carrying. He said, "How do you know?" And Padre Pio said, "Because I can see where your companion has gone." And then, briefly, before a friar appeared to accompany him inside, Padre Pio described 3 things to Davide Schiavone in the courtyard of San Giovanni Rotondo. 3 things he could see in the quality of a soul whose guardian angel had stepped to a distance. I need to describe those 3 signs now, and I want to take the time to do it carefully, because each one is more specific than it first sounds. The first sign Padre Pio described is the one he said he encountered most often, and the one that is most easily mistaken for something else entirely. He called it la preghiera nel vuoto, prayer into the void. The experience of praying and finding nothing on the other side. This is not despair. It is not anger at God or doubt or crisis of faith. People who have experienced genuine dark nights of the soul, the mystical tradition that saints like John of the Cross wrote about at length, describe something far more violent and intimate than this. What Padre Pio was describing is quieter and more prosaic. It is the experience of prayer becoming simply an activity, something you do with the same sincerity you have always had, but without any sense of contact, without the interior texture that used to accompany it, without the particular quality of being heard. Davide described it in his testimony precisely. "I was still praying. I believed in what I was praying, but it was as though the prayer went up and then stopped, as though it ran into something, not into a presence, into an absence, a very clean, very neutral absence. And over time, I began to adjust my expectations. I stopped expecting to feel anything when I prayed. I told myself this was maturity. I told myself that real faith does not depend on feeling, and I believed that mostly. But somewhere underneath it, I knew that what I had in my 20s had not been this, and I could not account for the difference. Padre Pio told him, "The angel carries your prayer. When it is close, when it is working alongside you actively, the prayer has the sense of passage. It moves. When the angel has stepped back, the prayer still rises, but it rises alone. You can feel the difference, even if you cannot name it." I want to pause here because when I first read this, I recognized it immediately, and not from someone else's experience, from my own. There was a period of about 3 years in my 40s before David's illness, when my prayer had exactly that quality: clean, neutral, sincere but without texture. I told myself the same thing Davide told himself: real faith does not depend on feeling. And that is true, but Padre Pio's point is different. He is not saying the feeling is the evidence of God. He is saying the feeling is the evidence of something specific about the soul's current condition. It is a symptom, not a test. What I did not know during those 3 years was that the second sign had also arrived without my noticing it. I want to stay with this first sign for another moment, because I think there is something important about how it is usually misunderstood, including by people who are genuinely trying to understand their own spiritual life. The temptation when prayer becomes empty is to look for an explanation in the content of the prayer, to try different prayers, to read different books, to attend different masses, to find a spiritual director. These are not wrong responses, and I have made all of them. But what Padre Pio was pointing at is something that precedes the technique. The first sign is not about the form of prayer. It is about the intermediary. And no change of form addresses what he was describing. The form was never the problem. What had stepped back was the companion that gave the form its vitality. And restoring the form without acknowledging the companion is like redecorating a room without opening the window that had been closed. The room looks different. The air does not move. The second sign is the one Padre Pio said people are least likely to recognize as a sign at all, because it disguises itself as tolerance, as growth, as maturity. He called it lo spesimento della vergogna, the thickening of shame, the progressive deadening of the soul's sensitivity to the specific things it used to find difficult. Not a deadening of conscience in a dramatic sense, not the sudden disappearance of the knowledge that something is wrong, something more gradual and more deceptive. The thing that used to cause interior resistance starts to cause slightly less. The thing that used to require effort to choose starts to require slightly less effort. The thing that used to leave a mark afterward starts to leave a slightly lighter mark, and then a lighter one still, until a person realizes at some point that they are choosing things they would not have chosen 10 years ago, and it does not seem like a very significant event. Padre Pio described it to Davide like this: when the angel is close and active, it works in the soul the way salt preserves. The soul retains its sensitivity to the things that are corrosive. When the angel steps back, that work pauses, and the soul begins, very slowly, to lose the particular tenderness that was being maintained. The person does not become wicked. They become easier with things they were not easy with before. And they usually interpret this as having grown less scrupulous, less rigid, more understanding of human weakness. But some of that ease is the angel's work ending, not their wisdom increasing. David recognized this immediately. He said in his testimony, he described something I had not thought to name. I had spent years telling myself that I had matured past certain anxieties, and some of that was true. But he was pointing at something else, specific things that had become genuinely easier over time, not because I had understood them better, but because the resistance to them had quietly faded. And when he said it, I understood the difference between those two things in a way I never had before. I want to share something from my years as a district nurse here, because it is the clearest parallel I know. In home visits, you develop a sense for when a patient has stopped registering pain in the way they should, not because the pain has gone away, because the nervous system has adapted to it. The body has reorganized itself around the sensation to such a degree that what was once an alarm signal has become background noise. And the most dangerous thing about this adaptation is that the patient interprets it as recovery. They feel better, they say. The thing that used to hurt does not hurt so much anymore. And you have to explain gently that this is not healing. It is the opposite. The absence of pain in a wound that is not healed is a warning, not a comfort. The second sign works the same way. The soul that has lost sensitivity to specific things it used to find difficult is not more mature. It has adapted to a spiritual pain signal that was being sent for a reason. And the adaptation, which feels like growth, is actually a symptom. This is the sign that requires the most careful attention, because the soul's own interpretation of it is almost always the wrong one. The soul almost always tells itself that the fading is wisdom. Padre Pio said it is sometimes wisdom, and it is sometimes something else entirely. The way to tell the difference, he told Brother Giacinto in the garden conversation, is to ask one specific question. Not am I less anxious about this than I used to be, but does the thing that has become easier still feel like it costs anything? If it costs nothing at all, if it has moved from difficult to simply ordinary, without passage through understanding, then the fading is more likely the second sign than the first. Stay with me, because the third sign is the one Padre Pio said he found most alarming, and the one that is most urgent to recognize. The third sign is not the absence of something, like the first two. It is a presence, an active quality, something the soul begins to feel that it did not feel before. Padre Pio called it il senso di facilità, the sense of ease, not ease with the world in a peaceful sense, ease with the wrong direction, a specific quality of frictionlessness when the soul is moving away from God, as distinct from the friction it feels when moving toward Him. He described it to David like this: when your companion is close and working, every wrong choice has weight. Not necessarily the weight of dramatic temptation or resistance, but a specific gravity. The soul feels the direction it is about to go in. The angel's presence is itself a kind of orientation, the way a compass needle is oriented by a field that the person holding it does not see. When the angel steps back, the needle begins to respond to other things. Choices that previously had gravity start to feel lighter. The wrong direction stops announcing itself as the wrong direction. And eventually, the soul is moving in a direction it would not have chosen 10 years ago, and the movement feels neutral because there is nothing pushing back. Davide said, "He described my last 5 years exactly. Not dramatically, he was describing something gradual and quiet, things I had chosen that I would not have chosen in my 30s, and the fact that I had chosen them without noticing that I had crossed something significant. This is why Padre Pio found it the most alarming of the 3 signs, not because it is the most dramatic, because it is the most advanced. The soul that is at the first sign, prayer feeling empty, has not yet begun to move. The soul at the second sign, shame fading, is beginning to drift. But the soul at the third sign, wrong choices feeling easy, is already in motion, and the further it moves, the less it feels the distance it has traveled. The third sign is also the one that Padre Pio said responds most dramatically to the practices I am going to describe. Because once a soul recognizes that the frictionlessness it has been experiencing is a sign rather than a development, it can reverse it. The gravity returns faster than it was lost. The soul that names the ease finds the weight again, often within days. I will explain how in a moment. But first I need to tell you something that changes the entire frame of these three signs. Something that I believe is the most important thing in this recording, and something that I did not realize I needed to hear until I read it for the first time. And now I need to tell you the part of this that Padre Pio considered the most important, the part that changes everything about these three signs. The angel has not left. I want to say that again, because the title of this recording is provocative in a specific direction, and I do not want it to leave you with the wrong impression. What Padre Pio was describing, both in the garden conversation with Brother Giacinto and in the courtyard with Davide Schiavone, is not abandonment. A guardian angel does not abandon the soul it is assigned to. The Catholic tradition on this point is very clear, and Padre Pio's own understanding was entirely consistent with it. What the angel does, when the soul persistently chooses against what the angel is trying to do for it, when the soul repeatedly declines the interior prompt, the sense of resistance, the quality of discomfort that the angel provides precisely to help the soul maintain its orientation, is step back, give space. Allow the soul to feel what it is choosing in a way that the constant closeness of the angel's work was preventing it from feeling fully. This is not punishment. This is not rejection. Padre Pio described it to Davide in terms that I have not been able to stop thinking about. He said, "The angel steps back the way a loving parent steps back when a child insists on learning something the hard way, not to abandon, to allow." The parent does not stop watching, does not stop loving, does not walk out of the room, but it creates a space in which the child can feel the full weight of the choice it has made, and perhaps come to understand, from the inside, what the parent was trying to communicate from the outside. And then he said, "The angel is always at a distance you can close." This is the heart of what Padre Pio taught, not just about guardian angels, but about the entire spiritual life. The distance between where you are and where your companion is waiting is always closable. The angel does not move further away over time. It waits at the distance it has taken, which is not far, which is within reach, and what calls it back is specific. What calls it back is naming. Padre Pio told Davide something very practical in that courtyard. He said, "The angel responded to three things that I want you to do, not immediately, not dramatically, over time, with patience. But these three things will close the distance." And this is where we come to the practices. The first is what Padre Pio called the morning address, speaking to the guardian angel directly by name, if you know it, as a living being, not as a concept, not as a metaphor, as the specific companion that has been assigned to you since before your birth and will be present at your death, as someone who knows you more completely than any human being knows you, who has watched every moment of your life, who has never once looked away. The address does not need to be long. Padre Pio gave Davide a form of it. Guardian, companion, witness of my life. I name you. I acknowledge that you are here. I acknowledge that I have not always listened. I am listening today. The reason this matters, Padre Pio explained, is that the angel's withdrawal is partly a response to being treated as absent. The soul that goes for years without acknowledging the angel's presence as real, as specific, as personal, gradually trains itself to function as though the angel is not there. And the habit of non-acknowledgement has a spiritual effect that mirrors its practical effect. What you do not greet does not greet you back in the spiritual sense. The morning address is not magic, it is orientation. It is the soul turning its face in a direction it had stopped facing. The second practice is what Padre Pio described as the act of honest naming. Not a formal confession, though that may follow, an interior act, private and specific, in which the soul names the specific area where the second sign has been operating. The specific thing that has become easier than it should be. the specific ease that does not feel like wisdom when examined closely. He told David, "You do not need to confess it to me today. You need to say it to yourself honestly, and then say it to God honestly, without reducing it or dressing it in the language of circumstance. What has become easier in you that used to cost something? Name it." The naming is itself a form of resistance. It interrupts the neutralization. This practice, repeated daily for 40 days, has a specific effect that Padre Pio described in terms I find exact. He said, "The soul that names what has become easy begins to feel the weight return, not all at once, gradually. The gravity comes back. And with the gravity comes the orientation. And with the orientation, the angel, which has been waiting at the edge of the room, takes one step closer." The third practice is the one that Padre Pio said takes the longest and produces the deepest result. He called it the weekly examination of direction. Once a week, at a consistent time, the soul asks itself one specific question, not "How well did I do this week?" Not "What did I fail at?" But "In which direction did I move this week?" Not by external measurements, not by the count of prayers said or masses attended, though those matter, by the interior compass reading. Was the third sign present this week? Did anything feel easier that should have weight? Was prayer empty or alive? And if the angel has stepped back in a specific area, what single step could I take toward closing the distance? Padre Pio told Brother Giacinto in the garden that this practice, sustained over months, was the one that produced the most lasting change, because it trains the soul to pay attention to its own direction in real time, rather than addressing the direction only in crisis. I want to tell you what happened to Davide Schiavone. He did not get into the confessional that day. He sat in the courtyard for 2 more hours after Padre Pio went inside, thinking about the 3 things he had been told in a 5-minute conversation with a man he had never met who had known his name and the number of years he had been praying into the void. He went home to Barletta and began the morning address the next day. He reported that for the first 2 weeks he felt nothing. The prayer was still empty. The vacancy was still present. He continued. By the 4th week, something changed. He said in his testimony that he could not describe it as a feeling exactly, more a sense of the direction of the prayer changing, as though the prayer that had been going into an empty space was going somewhere that had something in it. He returned to San Giovanni Rotondo 6 weeks after the first visit. This time he entered the confessional. He named the specific thing that had become easy. The naming took about 30 seconds. What followed from the absolution, he wrote, took the rest of his life to fully understand. He said, "I did not become a different person. I became the person I had been before the vacancy arrived. I recognized myself from the inside in a way I had not for 7 years. And my daughter Teresa, who had told me to go in the first place, said something at dinner the week after I returned that I have never forgotten. She said, 'Dad, I do not know what happened to you, but your eyes look like they used to when I was small.' I think someone came back." I think about that sentence often. Someone came back. Not someone new, someone who had been there before. The companion who had taken a few steps back and who took a step forward when David finally turned around and said, "I see you. I am listening. I am here." Father Declan, the priest from County Clare, who's been at the same parish for 30 years and who has a gift for saying things quietly that you cannot unhear, said something to me once when I told him about the 3 signs. I was describing the second sign, the thickening of shame, and I said that what frightened me about it was how completely it disguises itself as something benign. He said, "The angel is not your judge. It is your witness. When it steps back, it is not because it has given up on you. It is because it is giving you room to see yourself clearly. The distance is painful precisely because it was designed to be noticed. An angel that abandoned without trace would not be a loving companion. an angel that steps back in a way that produces exactly these three signs, which are designed to be recognized by anyone willing to attend to them, is still doing its work. The work has changed, but it has not stopped. That sentence, "The distance is designed to be noticed," has stayed with me. The signs are not evidence of failure. They are evidence that the angel is still communicating with you, in the only language available when the close communication has been declined. I want to say something to those of you who have recognized one or more of these three signs in the season you are currently in. You are not abandoned. You have not been left. Your angel has not walked out of the room, and it is not angry with you, and it does not love you any less for the years in which you did not attend to it. It is at the edge of the room. It is watching. And the distance between you and it is exactly as far as the first morning address, which you can say tomorrow, which costs you 2 minutes and a sincere intention. Now, I want to say something to those of you who have been with this channel for some time, who have written to me, whose notes and responses I read carefully, because they tell me what is reaching people and what is not, what is helping and what needs more thought. This recording is the product of a considerable amount of work. The archival research behind it, tracking down Brother Giacinto's letter, tracing the provenance of Davide Schiavone's testimony, cross-referencing Padre Pio's documented understanding of guardian angels with what his brothers and assistants recorded, is not light work. And this channel, which carries no advertising and no commercial sponsorship, is sustained entirely by the people who choose to support it directly. If this recording has given you something today, if one of the three signs found you somewhere you were not expecting to be found, or if Davide's story, or Teresa's sentence at the dinner table, or the image of the angel at the edge of the room waiting to be acknowledged, if any of it has reached something real in you, I want to ask you something. You will see a super thanks button below this video. If you feel moved to use it, here is how I want you to think about what that means. It is not payment for information. It is a participation in the work of making sure that the next person who has been praying into the void for 7 years and cannot explain why finds this recording. Every act of support means that what Padre Pio told Brother Giacinto in a garden in 1948 and what he said to Davide Schiavone in a courtyard in 1961 reaches one more person who needed to hear it and had not yet found it. Some of you have written to me after previous recordings to say that something shifted in how you pray. Some have said they returned to confession. Some have said they felt, for the first time in a long time, that they were not alone in their interior life. I carry those notes. And I want you to know that if you support this channel today, you are part of making those encounters possible for the person who has not yet found them. If you can support with super thanks today, I receive it with gratitude and with full knowledge of what it makes possible. And if you cannot, your presence here and the way you carry these three signs into your week and attend to what they show you about your own direction, that is also a form of support I receive with real gratitude. Thank you. Now I want to invite you to do something in the comments. Think about the three signs: the prayer into the void, the thickening of shame, the ease with the wrong direction. You do not have to tell me which one you recognized, but if you are willing, I want you to write one word in the comments. Not a sentence. Just a word that represents what you are going to do differently this week. One word. That is all. I will read everyone. And if you want to share what the three signs opened in you, I want to hear that too. Now let me give you the three practices one more time, plainly, so you can carry them. First, the morning address. Speak to your guardian angel as a specific, living being. 2 minutes. Every morning, name them, acknowledge them. Say, I know you are here. I'm listening today. Second, the act of honest naming. Once a day, for 40 days, name the specific thing that has become easier than it should be. Not to punish yourself, to interrupt the neutralization, to restore the weight. Third, the weekly examination of direction. Once a week, at a time you choose and hold consistently. Ask yourself one question only: in which direction did I move this week? Not by the count of prayers, by the compass reading. These three practices, Padre Pio told Davide Schiavone in a 5-minute courtyard conversation in 1961, will close the distance. I believe him. And I want to close with something that Padre Pio is recorded as saying on more than one occasion to people who came to him troubled about their spiritual companions, afraid that they had been abandoned, uncertain whether the angel assigned to them had given up. He said, "Your angel has been with you longer than you have been with yourself. It was present before you could think. It will be present after you stop thinking. It has seen every moment of your life, and it has not once in all of those moments looked away. The distance between you is not as great as it feels. Turn around. It is right there."